The first thing I noticed was the ceiling fan. It turned in a slow, lazy circle above a room I had never slept in before. The second thing I noticed was the headache behind my eyes. The third was the fact that my shoes were lined up neatly beside a pale gray couch. My suit jacket was folded over a dining chair, and my phone was charging on a kitchen counter 10 feet away. I sat up too quickly. A glass of water waited on the coffee table beside 2 aspirin, and a note written in careful block letters. Drink first. Panic later. I recognized the handwriting. Olivia? My voice sounded like gravel. A cabinet closed in the kitchen. Olivia Harper stepped into view wearing black leggings, an oversized University of Kentucky sweatshirt, and the same tired expression she wore after a 12-hour supplier negotiation. She held out a mug. Coffee after water. I stared at her, then at the apartment, then back at her. What happened? Nothing you need to apologize for physically, she said. You slept on the couch, I slept in my bedroom. You were sick once, but you made it to the sink, which I appreciated. Relief came fast enough to make me dizzy. Then Olivia crossed her arms. But you did ask me to stay. I blinked. I'm already in your apartment. That isn't what I meant. Something in her voice made me put the coffee down. She looked toward the window. Morning light fell across the row of old brick buildings beyond the glass. At 2:17, she said, I covered you with a blanket and told you I was going to bed. You grabbed my wrist and asked me not to leave the room. I said nothing. You said, stay until I fall asleep. I've spent 3 years pretending I don't need anyone, and I'm tired. My stomach tightened. Olivia rubbed one hand over the other, as if she could still feel where I had held her. Then you said my name, she continued, and you told me you didn't know how to watch me move away and act like it didn't matter. There were moments when a hangover disappeared beneath a larger emergency. This was one of them. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 41 that winter, senior operations manager at Northline Medical Systems in Louisville, Kentucky. I had worked there for 11 years and had built a reputation on being steady. I remembered birthdays. I met deadlines. I knew which warehouse supervisors could solve a staffing shortage in 10 minutes, and which vice presidents needed 40 slides before they would approve a new printer. I did not get drunk at company parties. I did not wake up in coworkers' apartments. And I absolutely did not tell Olivia Harper that the thought of her leaving town had been eating a hole through the middle of my chest. At least, I had never done it sober. Olivia was 38 and ran strategic procurement for the hospital equipment division. We were equals on the org chart, which meant neither of us reported to the other, but our jobs overlapped almost every day. I managed delivery systems, installation teams, and regional operations. She negotiated the contracts that made those systems possible. For 3 years, we had shared meeting rooms, airport delays, bad sandwiches, vendor disasters, and the kind of quiet trust that grows between two people who know exactly how the other will behave when something goes wrong. She knew I hated being late, kept antacids in my desk, and called my mother every Wednesday night. I knew she never ate before a difficult presentation, collected old jazz records, and had a habit of tapping a pen against her thumb whenever she wanted to say something she had decided not to say. The tapping had happened a lot lately, especially after she told me she had been offered a regional director position in Charlotte. Do I remember any of this? She asked. Pieces. That sounds convenient. It isn't. Olivia picked up her own mug. What pieces? The hotel ballroom. Greg trying to dance with the legal team. Someone putting bourbon in a coffee cup. That someone was you. I was hoping you'd forgotten. I drove you home. I remember everything. I looked around again. You drove me here. You refused to give me your address. I winced. Why? You said your house was too quiet. That sentence hurt more than the headache. Olivia's expression softened, but only for a second. You were in no condition to be alone, she said. My place was 8 minutes away. Yours is almost 30. I brought you here. Did I embarrass you at the party? No. Did I embarrass myself? Yes, but mostly with karaoke. I closed my eyes. What song? Don't make me say it. That bad? You tried to harmonize with Take It Easy. You did not take it easy. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Olivia almost smiled. Almost. Then the silence returned. The company party had been Northline's year-end celebration, held Friday night at a hotel overlooking the Ohio River. I remembered the first hour clearly. I remembered accepting an operations award I did not want. I remembered Olivia wearing a deep blue dress and silver earrings. I remembered seeing her talking with our president beside a Christmas tree and realizing, from the look on her face, that something had become final. Charlotte. 2 days earlier, she had told me the offer was likely. At the party, she had told me she was accepting it. I was happy for you, I said. You were. I meant it. I know. Then why did I drink like a college freshman? Olivia took a slow breath. That isn't a question I can answer for you. I nodded. Fair. My eyes landed on my phone across the room. Is it bad? The group chat? I groaned. It could be worse. You didn't propose to anybody. I looked at her sharply. She raised an eyebrow. That was a joke. Not funny? It was a little funny. I reached for the water. There were 31 unread messages on my phone, most from our team. A photograph of me with one arm around Greg Patel, our general counsel, had already been turned into a meme. Another showed me pointing seriously at a decorative ice sculpture, as if I were explaining warehouse throughput to it. But there was nothing about Olivia. No video? No public confession? No company-wide humiliation? Whatever I had said to her, I had said privately. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Can I ask what else I said? Olivia sat in the chair across from me. You asked if Charlotte had good bookstores. I nodded. Reasonable. You asked whether I would keep the old record player if I moved. Less reasonable. You asked whether I had already found an apartment. I looked at her. And then? And then you told me I should go. I frowned. You said it was a great job. You said I had earned it. You said Northline needed more leaders who could walk into a room full of surgeons and make them listen without raising their voice. That sounds like me. It did. She looked down into her coffee. Then you said you hated that being proud of me and being miserable could happen at the same time. The room went still. That, too, sounded like me. Sober me had thought it many times. Drunk me had apparently lost the filter. I'm sorry. Olivia's eyes came up. For what? For putting that on you? You keep saying that like the feeling itself is a burden. I don't want it to become one. Ethan. She set down her cup. I am not upset because you had feelings after bourbon. I am upset because I have spent the last year wondering whether I imagined the way you look at me when we're alone, and last night you told me I didn't. I forgot about my headache. Olivia leaned back, arms folded again, but now I could see the tension beneath the posture. I need to know something before you leave, she said. What? When you told me to go to Charlotte? Was that the truth? Yes. And when you asked me to stay with you last night? I hesitated. Her mouth tightened. I don't mean in Louisville, she said. I mean here, in your life. Was that true too? I looked at her. There are questions a person can answer quickly because they are simple. Then there are questions they answer slowly because the truth has consequences. Yes, I said. Olivia closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, they were bright. Then we have a problem. I almost laughed from nerves. Just one? For now. She stood and walked to the kitchen. I followed more carefully this time. On the counter beside my phone was a folded white cocktail napkin. Olivia opened it. Inside was a room key from the hotel. Across the back, in my handwriting, were 6 words. Don't ask her to become smaller. I stared at them. What is that? You wrote it at the bar. Why? You tell me. A memory surfaced. Olivia had been standing beside me after telling me about Charlotte. I had asked whether she was nervous. She had said yes. Then she had smiled and said, "That doesn't mean I shouldn't go?" I had wanted to say, "Don't." Instead, I had asked the bartender for another drink. Later, I must have written myself the warning I was too afraid to speak. I picked up the card. My ex-wife used to say I turned every difficult conversation into a logistics problem. Olivia had heard pieces about Marissa, but not many. I had been divorced for 6 years. The marriage had lasted 9. What does that have to do with last night? More than I wanted to. I sat at the small dining table. Olivia remained standing. Marissa got offered a position in Atlanta during our 7th year, I said. She wanted to take it. I had just been promoted here. I told her moving made no financial sense. I made lists, cost of living, retirement contributions, mortgage penalties. Did you ask what she wanted? Not until after I had already argued against it for 2 months. Olivia's face changed. She turned it down, I continued, stayed another year, resented me for it. By the time I finally told her she should take the next opportunity, she didn't want permission from me anymore. She wanted out. I'm sorry. So after the divorce, I decided I would never ask someone to change their life for me. That sounds noble. It was easier than admitting I had decided never to need someone enough to ask anything at all. Olivia was quiet. Then she pulled out the chair across from me. Last night, I said, I wanted to ask you not to go, I know, but I also knew that would be wrong. No. Telling me what you want is not wrong. Deciding what I should do with that information might be. The distinction landed cleanly. I stared at the hotel key in my hand. That's why you wrote that, she said. Don't ask her to become smaller? Maybe. You think wanting me nearby means wanting me smaller. I think I have evidence that I'm capable of confusing the two. And I think you are using your worst mistake as a permanent excuse not to make a choice. I looked at her. Olivia's voice had gone quieter. You have never once asked me to dinner outside work. We've had dinner outside work. With vendors, with teams, at airports. We had tacos after the Lexington installation. Greg was there for the first 20 minutes. He left. You still talked about oxygen monitor delivery schedules. I could not argue. She leaned forward. Do you know why I applied for Charlotte? Because you want to lead a region. Yes. And because I got tired of building my personal life around a question you refused to answer. My chest tightened. What question? Whether there was an us, I said nothing. Olivia looked toward the window. I have had feelings for you for almost 2 years, she said. I didn't apply to punish you. I didn't accept to test you. But I realized I was staying emotionally available to a man who never actually asked me for anything. The phrase hit harder than it should have. Asked me for anything. I had thought restraint made me safe. To her, it had looked like absence. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for 5 minutes. That surprised a laugh out of me. She smiled this time. A real one, though it faded quickly. I leave in 4 weeks, she said. I know. The Charlotte role is 6 months of setup before they decide whether to make the division permanent. I read the announcement. Of course you did. I read all announcements. Ethan. Sorry. She shook her head. What do you want? She asked. Not what should happen. Not what was responsible. Not what would look clean on paper. What do you want? I want you to take the job, I said. Her face fell a little. And I want you to have dinner with me tonight. She went very still. Tonight? Yes. A date? Yes. You're hungover. I plan to improve by 7. A smile pulled at one corner of her mouth. And after dinner? We decide whether this is real enough to be inconvenient. Olivia studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded once. 7:30. I exhaled. Okay. And Ethan? Yes? If you show up with a spreadsheet, I'm leaving. By 7:15, I had showered twice, slept for 3 hours, eaten enough bread to qualify as a bakery, and changed shirts 4 times. I arrived at a small Italian restaurant in the Highlands, carrying nothing but my wallet, and a fear I had not felt in years. Olivia was already there. She had changed into dark jeans and a cream sweater. No corporate badge, no laptop, no folder. Seeing her without the visual armor of work felt strangely intimate. You're early, she said. So are you. I was checking whether you'd bring a spreadsheet. I held up both hands. Clean. She laughed. That dinner was the first time in 3 years I learned facts about Olivia that had nothing to do with procurement. Her father had been a high school band director. Her first job had been at a bookstore, where she spent half her paycheck on used records. She had once planned to go to law school, changed her mind after 2 months of studying for the LSAT, and never told most people because she hated explaining decisions she had already made. I told her I had wanted to be an architect, until I discovered I was better at making projects happen than designing them. I told her I still drove past the house where my grandparents had lived when I needed to think. I told her the divorce had not made me cynical about love. It had made me suspicious of my own judgment. You know what I find strange? Olivia said after dessert. What? You trust yourself with decisions that affect hundreds of employees. Employees come with policies. And people don't? Not useful ones. She smiled. Then she looked serious. What are we doing, Ethan? I don't know yet. That answer, I believe. I want to find out. Even with Charlotte? Especially with Charlotte. Her eyes searched mine. I won't stay in Louisville because of one date. I won't ask you to. I won't promise long distance before we know whether we can make it through 3 normal weeks. Fair. And I'm not going to become your proof that you aren't the man you were with Marissa. That one hurt. You're right. I need you to want me, not use me to redeem yourself. I do want you. The words came out so directly that both of us stopped. I let them remain in the air. Then I said, I have wanted you for a long time. Olivia's eyes softened. How long? I thought about the answer. Remember the St. Joseph install? The ice storm? You slept in the loading dock office. You brought me soup. You had a fever. You sat there for 2 hours arguing with a freight company while I pretended not to listen. She laughed. That was 18 months ago. I know. You waited 18 months to ask me to dinner. I am aware that my efficiency rating in this area is poor, terrible, catastrophic. Her hand rested on the table between us. I looked at it, then at her. Can I hold your hand? Olivia smiled slowly. You can. It was the simplest thing I had done all day. It was also the first decision that felt honest. We walked after dinner, even though it was cold. At the corner near Baxter Avenue, Olivia stopped beside her car. I need to tell you something else, she said. What? Charlotte isn't the only change coming. I waited. Northline is reorganizing after the first quarter. Procurement and operations are being combined under regional business units. My stomach sank. She nodded. If Charlotte becomes permanent, I may end up controlling supplier approvals for your region. And if we're together... It could become a conflict. Does anyone know? Not yet. The structure isn't final. I almost started solving it. I could feel the machinery in my brain turn on. Reporting lines, reassignment, disclosure, alternate roles. Olivia watched my face and raised one finger. No spreadsheet. I laughed. Right. We don't have to fix a problem that doesn't exist yet. That is deeply unnatural for me. I know. She stepped closer. Try anyway. I looked at her. Can I kiss you? Sigh. Asking works. Then she kissed me first. On Monday, we went back to work. Nothing looked different, which made everything feel different. She sat across from me in a supply review and argued that my installation schedule for a new surgical imaging system was unrealistic. I told her the vendor had promised a 30-day lead time. She said the vendor also promised to send us revised insurance certificates 3 weeks earlier, and had not. Normally, our disagreement would have ended there. That morning, I noticed the way she pressed her lips together to keep from smiling when I admitted she was right. After the meeting, we walked toward the elevators. Dinner. Wednesday? I asked. Yes. Your place or mine? She gave me a look. For dinner, I know. You looked terrified after you said it. I'm adjusting. My place, she said. You already know where the couch is. The first real problem arrived before she even moved. 3 days before Christmas, our vice president, Martin Shaw, called me into his office. Martin had spent 30 years in operations and had the unsettling habit of remaining silent until people answered questions he had not asked yet. He closed the door. Charlotte, he said. I waited. We are accelerating the regional structure. I heard. We need a director of field integration there by March. I knew immediately where the conversation was going. Martin slid a folder across the desk. You are my first choice. For several seconds, I only looked at the folder. The role was exactly the kind of position I had worked toward for years. Larger team, more authority, more money, direct responsibility for 3 states. And Charlotte. My first thought was Olivia. My second thought was that my first thought, being Olivia, was dangerous. Martin watched me. You don't look happy? I'm surprised. Be surprised later. Read it. I opened the folder. The job would begin in 10 weeks. It did not report to procurement. If Olivia's regional office became permanent, we would still be peers under different executives. Professionally, it solved almost every problem. Personally, it created a new one. If I accepted, everyone, including Olivia, could believe I had rearranged my career to follow her after 2 weeks of dating. If I declined because I feared that appearance, I would be doing exactly what I had always done, letting fear make the decision before the other person had a voice. I need a few days, I said. You have until January 5th. I left Martin's office with the folder under my arm. Then I made my first mistake. I did not tell Olivia. Not that day, not the next. I told myself I was waiting until I understood the role. That was partly true. Mostly, I was trying to solve my emotions before involving her. On Christmas Eve, Olivia flew to Ohio to see her sister. I drove to Lexington to spend 2 days with my mother. We talked every night. I still did not mention Charlotte. On December 27th, Olivia called me from the airport. You sound strange, she said. I'm in my kitchen. That is a location, not a defense. I'm fine. You say fine like a man being deposed. I looked at Martin's folder on the table. Work thing? I said. There was a pause. What work thing? I should have told her. Instead, I said, nothing final. The silence on the other end changed. Ethan, I'll explain when you're back. You're doing it. Doing what? deciding when I am allowed into the conversation. I closed my eyes. That isn't what I meant. It never is. Olivia, my flight is boarding. We'll talk tomorrow. The call ended. I stood alone in my kitchen, staring at the folder. Then I said out loud to an empty room, "Excellent work." We met the next evening at her apartment. Boxes lined the walls now. Half the books were gone. The record player sat wrapped in bubble film near the window. Olivia did not offer coffee. What is the work thing? I handed her the folder. She read the first page, then the second. Her expression did not change until she saw the proposed location. Charlotte. Yes. When did you get this? Last Tuesday. Her eyes lifted. Before Christmas? Yes. You have talked to me 6 times since then. I know. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to understand the offer before. Before what? I stopped. Before letting you affect me. Before risking that your opinion might matter. Before admitting that the future I had spent years planning alone had suddenly become a shared subject. Before I asked you to carry a decision I should be able to evaluate myself. Olivia put the folder down. That sounds responsible if you don't listen closely. I know. Do you? Yes. She walked to the window. I could see her reflection in the dark glass. Do you want the job? Yes. The answer surprised her. It surprised me too. Would you want it if I were moving to Chicago? Yes. Phoenix? Yes. Seattle? Yes. She turned. Then why did you hide it? Because I was afraid you would think I was following you. Are you? No. Would being in the same city be part of why you accept? Yes. She stared at me. That is allowed, Ethan. I looked down. I am trying to believe that. Her anger softened, but it did not disappear. I don't need you to pretend I have no effect on your decisions. I need you not to make me responsible for them. That is fair. Do you know what I heard when you kept this from me? What? I heard that you still trust your fear more than you trust me. That sentence stayed in the room. I had no defense. I'm sorry. I know. I'll tell Martin I need until... No. I stopped. Olivia folded her arms. You will decide whether you want that job. You will consider the work, the money, the city, your mother, your house, your life, and yes, me. Then you will own the choice. And you? I will own mine. There was no dramatic reconciliation that night. She did not ask me to stay. I did not kiss her. I went home and spent 2 hours trying not to turn the decision into an equation. The next morning, I called my mother. She listened quietly. So, she said when I finished, you like the job? Yes. You like the woman? Yes. You like Louisville? Yes. You are 41, Ethan. You are allowed to like more than one thing at a time. That is not especially helpful. It is if you stop waiting for one choice to become painless. I laughed. Then she said something that sounded simple and wasn't. Your father and I moved 3 times. Not every move was for him. Not every move was for me. Every move was for the life we were building at that time. The mistake is not letting another person matter. The mistake is making them the only reason. On January 2nd, I accepted the Charlotte role. Before I called Martin, I called Olivia. I'm taking it. There was a small pause. How do you feel? Excited? Scared? Yes? About the job? Some? About us? More. She laughed softly. Good answer. I'm not moving because of you. I know. But you are part of why Charlotte feels like a future instead of just a promotion. This time the silence was warm. Thank you for saying that. Are we okay? We're learning. It was not the reassurance I wanted. It was better. 4 weeks later, Olivia moved first. I helped load the last boxes into a moving truck, but did not ride with her. She wanted the drive alone. At noon, standing beside the truck, I felt the old instinct rise. Tell her not to go. Ask her to wait. Make the moment mean something. Instead, I said, "Call when you get there." Olivia looked at me for a long time. "Is that all?" "No." "Good." I smiled. "I'm going to miss you." "Better. I love you." The words left my mouth before I had scheduled them. Olivia stopped breathing for half a second. So did I. We had not said it yet. Not sober, not clearly. I could have tried to explain. I did not. "I love you," I said again. Her eyes filled. "You have terrible timing." "I know." She stepped close. "I love you too." Then she kissed me beside a truck full of moving boxes, while a man from the moving company pretended to be fascinated by a clipboard. By March, I had moved into a rented townhouse outside Charlotte. Olivia lived 15 minutes away in a third-floor apartment full of records, plants, and boxes she had still not unpacked. We did not move in together. That surprised some people. It surprised me less. We had spent 3 years being emotionally close without taking any personal risk. We did not want to correct that by taking every risk at once. Then came the setback I did not see coming. In April, Olivia's 6-month regional role was approved for permanent status. She should have been celebrating. Instead, that same week, Northline announced that the procurement organization would be centralized in Dallas the following year. Charlotte could keep a small local team, but regional directors would eventually be expected to relocate. Olivia came to my townhouse after work with the announcement printed in her hand. "Dallas," she said. I read it twice. "When?" "January." "Is it mandatory?" For the rector role, likely. I could feel old habits waking up. I could transfer. I could ask Martin about Texas. I could sell the townhouse. Olivia watched me. "Don't." "I haven't said anything. Your face has created a 40-page relocation plan." I put the paper down. "What do you want?" I don't know. It was the first time I had heard her say that about her career. She sat at my kitchen table. "I just got here. I built this team. I like Charlotte. I like us being in the same city." "So do I. But Dallas could be a bigger role. Do you want bigger?" "Maybe." I sat across from her. "What are you afraid to say?" Olivia looked at me. "That I don't want to move again." Relief crossed her face after the words were out, followed immediately by guilt. I spent so much time proving I would never shrink my career for a relationship that now I'm scared staying could look like failure. "Staying where?" "Charlotte." "Because of me?" "Partly." I nodded. "That is allowed." Her eyes filled. I had borrowed her own words. She laughed once and looked away. "What if I turn down Dallas and regret it? Then we deal with regret. What if I take Dallas and we can't make another move work? Then we deal with that. You make it sound easy." "No, I'm trying to stop making uncertainty sound like an emergency." She reached across the table and took my hand. For the next month, we asked questions instead of making promises. What did the Dallas role actually include? Could Olivia lead supplier strategy from Charlotte? Would the centralized model survive the next budget review? What did I want from my own career? Did we want to live together? Were we willing to do distance again? The answer did not arrive in one romantic scene. It arrived in pieces. Olivia flew to Dallas and hated the proposed office. Then she met the national procurement president and loved the scope of the work. I spent a weekend there and realized I could imagine living in Texas, but did not want to chase every possibility before it became real. Martin told me Northline planned to keep field integration leadership in Charlotte for at least 2 years. Olivia's choice became clearer. She wanted the national role. I wanted to stay in Charlotte. For the first time, we were not afraid to say both truths. We agreed she would take the role and commute to Dallas for 3 days every other week during the first 6 months. After that, we would reassess based on actual experience instead of fear. It was messy. It was expensive. It was not forever. It was ours. 6 months after the company party, Olivia gave me a key to her apartment. I stared at it. This feels symbolic. It is practical. You keep leaving coffee at my place. That is not what keys are for. It is now. I put the key on my ring. She watched me. Do you remember the first night you were here? Unfortunately, you asked me to. I remember being told. You don't remember saying it? No. She sat beside me on the couch where I had woken with one shoe under the table, and my dignity missing. I do, she said. You looked terrified. I was drunk. You were lonely. I did not argue. Olivia touched my hand. I stayed because I loved you, she said. But I also stayed because I knew morning would force us to say something. And did you know what? No. I just knew silence had stopped being kind. That sentence followed me for a long time. By the following December, the company party had become a private joke between us. Northline held the event at its renovated bourbon warehouse downtown. I drank 1 glass of wine over 3 hours. Olivia photographed it for evidence. Greg Patel tried to convince me to sing karaoke. I told him there were laws against repeat offenses. At 9:30, Olivia and I slipped outside into the cold. The city lights reflected off the river. Last year, she said, you could barely stand by now. I have matured. You alphabetized the appetizers. They were mislabeled. She laughed and leaned into me. We had been together almost a year. She was traveling to Dallas less often because Northline had unexpectedly approved a hybrid leadership model after 3 senior directors refused to relocate. My Charlotte role had expanded. We had survived missed flights, 1 terrible vacation, 2 family holidays, 3 arguments about money, and a week when Olivia refused to speak to me for 4 hours because I had tried to repair her record player after being specifically told not to. We were not engaged. We were not rushing. But we had started looking at houses. Not because one of us needed to prove commitment, because we were tired of owning 2 blenders. Olivia reached into her coat pocket. I have something for you. She handed me the old hotel room key, the one from the morning after the party. On the back were my 6 drunken words. Don't ask her to become smaller. I smiled. You kept this? For a year. Why? Because I think you misunderstood your own advice. I looked at her. Olivia turned the card over. On the front, beneath the faded hotel logo, she had written 6 new words. Ask her, then listen to her answer. My throat tightened. That is annoyingly better. I know. I slipped the card into my wallet. Then Olivia looked toward the party doors. Do you want to go back in? No. What do you want to do? A year earlier, that question would have frightened me. Now I answered, without searching for the safest version. I want to go home with you. She smiled. Which home? I looked at her. That sounds like a question we should finally answer. 2 months later, we signed a lease on a house in a quiet neighborhood south of the city. We chose it together. That mattered more to me than the house itself. It had a small office for Olivia, a garage I claimed I would organize and never did, and a living room large enough for her record collection. The first night after the movers left, we sat on the floor eating takeout because neither of us could find the plates. Olivia leaned against a box and looked around. Do you know what I like most about this place? The reasonable commute? No. No? The storage? Ethan, I'm listening. She smiled. You didn't ask me to stay, I frowned. That sounds bad. It isn't. She reached for my hand. You asked me where I wanted to go. The room became quiet. I thought about the year behind us, the couch in her apartment, the Charlotte offer, the job I hid because I was afraid to let her matter, the flights we missed, the arguments we survived, Dallas, the hotel key, all the moments when one of us had mistaken love for sacrifice, protection, certainty, or proof. Olivia squeezed my fingers. I used to think being independent meant never letting another person change my plans, she said. You used to think loving someone meant never asking them to change theirs. And we were both wrong. Spectacularly. I smiled. What do you think now? She looked around our half-unpacked living room. I think love is letting another person matter without making them disappear. I sat with that. Then I said, Stay. Olivia raised an eyebrow. I laughed. Not because you have to. Not because I'm afraid you'll leave. Just because I want another hour with you on this floor before we start unpacking. She leaned her head against my shoulder. That, she said, I can do. A month later, on an ordinary Tuesday, I came home to find music playing and Olivia cooking dinner badly. She was excellent at procurement and terrible with heat. Smoke drifted above a pan. I opened a window. You're ruining the atmosphere, she said. I'm saving the smoke detector. She handed me a wooden spoon. Stir. I did. There was no ballroom, no audience, no alcohol, no emergency. Just two people in a kitchen, trying to make dinner in a house they had chosen together. Olivia looked at me. What? Nothing. You're staring. I'm thinking. That is always dangerous. I turned down the burner. I'm thinking the night I woke up in your apartment was the most embarrassing morning of my life. Correct. And maybe the luckiest. Careful. I refuse to romanticize you throwing up in my sink. I'm not romanticizing that part. Good. I put the spoon down. I'm serious. She waited. I spent years believing the best way to love someone was to control the damage I might cause them. Olivia leaned against the counter. And it turns out people are not projects. You don't reduce risk by refusing to tell them what you want. You just make them guess. Her expression softened. That sounds expensive to learn. It cost me one terrible karaoke performance and a year of therapy-level conversations. Fair price. I stepped closer. When I asked you to stay that night, I thought I was asking you not to leave me alone. You were. But I think part of me was asking for something bigger. Olivia looked up at me. What? A chance to stop living like needing someone was a failure. She was quiet for a moment. Then she put both hands on my face. You know I would have left if you tried to make me smaller. I know. You know I may still take a job somewhere else someday. I know. You know you may too. I know. And you're still here. Yes. She smiled. So am I. I kissed her. The smoke detector went off 30 seconds later. We laughed so hard neither of us reached it immediately. That is the version of love I trust now. Not the dramatic confession made when good judgment has left the room. Not the sacrifice nobody requested. Not the promise that two people will never change, move, want more, or make mistakes. I trust the version that survives daylight. The version that can say, I want you here, without turning those words into a cage. The version that asks, what do you want? and stays long enough to hear an answer that may be inconvenient. The version that understands a person can matter to your plans without becoming responsible for them. I woke in Olivia Harper's apartment after a company party with almost no memory of how I got there. She told me I had asked her to stay. For a long time, I thought the important part of that story was that she did. It wasn't. The important part was what happened when we were both sober enough to understand what staying actually meant. It meant talking. It meant leaving when the right opportunity called. It meant coming back. It meant changing plans without shrinking each other. It meant asking instead of assuming. And on the nights when the house was quiet and neither of us had anywhere else to be, it meant choosing the same simple thing again. Stay a little longer. Not forever, all at once. Just long enough to make the next honest choice together. If you have ever loved someone whose future did not fit neatly inside your own, maybe you understand why that matters. Sometimes the strongest relationships are not built by holding on tighter. They are built by giving each other enough room to choose and discovering, again and again, that both people still choose to stay.